Hello and welcome back to the Tree of Life podcast. It's the perfect January episode because Kubi and I are both a bit snotty. So hopefully, well, maybe not hopefully, you're a bit snotty with us. But basically, everyone I know is full of snot these days. So welcome and join us for our snot-filled podcast discussing January. You want to pull up your bottle of... Yeah, is that your cough medicine?
Yeah, I'll raise you my bottle of cough syrup to that.
She was just doing shots beforehand, I swear.
What a time.
Yeah. The other precursor for everyone before we get started is I actually did buy Kubi a Yule gift of a microphone, but we found out that we couldn't get it working with her phone. So we apologize, but we tried to get her a nicer microphone. But unless someone wants to buy her a laptop, we're going to be stuck with this for a bit.
I'm open to that. I'm actually open to that request. No, we're gonna sort the mic out next time. We're fine.
Yeah, we have another idea, but we were like, let's go ahead and record today. But again, if you want to buy Kubi a laptop, but yeah, so oh yeah, we should have brought some tissues, I think.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, so January. So we're continuing our theme. I mean, we've always been doing this a year, so we're in the month of January now. And as we were kind of talking about before, January is kind of an interesting month because there's not a lot of celebration during this time of year.
Yeah, it can be a real dreamy time, can't it? It's the one time where everyone tries to run away from the winter. I kind of feel like that's a common theme. But really, the invitation of the season is to go deep, deep, deep within into the dark abyss of the cave. To see just to see what is there, what can be kind of dream weaved in the period of gestation. You know, like how nature stops and rests and does a little death. And I feel like so often we pretend that we're not part of nature, we forget and we reject that part of ourselves and that part that is cyclical, that has to go through the winter as well, like the animals and all the plants. But when we do, when we lean into it, there is a real magic to be found, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that in a podcast or two ago, is like how stupid New Year's resolutions were because it's just not the right time. And it's something I've been kind of been a little bit more open with people, and I'm kind of discussing, like, if people bring up New Year's resolutions, I bring up like, hey, what makes more sense? And this is like normal everyday people. Like, I'm not even talking spiritual or pagan type of people. And I'm like, what makes more sense? Do something in the spring or do something in the winter? And they're like the moment you say it, they're like, well, the spring, obviously. I'm like, then why do we do it in the winter?
Yeah, don't give in to peer pressure. Get back into bed.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I'm in the same way because, like, you know, obviously I've been on like a physical transformation, and I've lost a lot of weight, gotten a lot healthier. But obviously, it's winter. I put on a pound or two with all the winter food. I'm like, oh nope, I need to get back into it. I need to get more physical. Like, no, it's winter. Now is the time to put on a pound or two and get it warm and cozy, and that's okay. And I think the more we pressure ourselves to be more physically active in the winter or do that weight loss journey, the worst time to start your weight loss journey or a physical routine is January, because it's I'm looking outside, there's a foot of snow outside. Like, I'm not going to go, it's dark, I'm not going to go jogging right now. So it's better to lean into what is existing now. And then if you, like me, I'm like, no, I'm going to pick up the physical fitness routines in the spring again when it makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. It's so nice to take the pressure off yourself and just to be human, actually. Permission to be human and to be at one with the seasons is much healthier, I think. Yeah, good for you, man. That sounds good. That sounds healthy.
Yeah. I still do my yoga. I do my yoga in the morning.
Yeah. I get up and I stretch.
Yeah. I've seen you try to do yoga. It's not pretty.
And I stretch, and I might go for a walk, an amble with the dogs. And that's about it.
I will say, I do like a good snowy walk. Have you guys gotten snow in England yet?
We have a little bit further. Actually, Devon. I think Devon has a bit of snow, but we didn't get that much. We got a few little patterings that didn't settle.
Yeah. It's the one flaw of Glastonbury is you don't get enough snow there for me.
I know, but when we do, it looks absolutely magnificent. Of course, with the
the day it sticks around.
Yeah, but yeah, it's beautiful walking around in the snow, isn't it? That's one thing that's kind of worth sticking around for. Like, did you say you've been walking around yourself recently?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because like where I'm at in Cincinnati, we got a foot of snow in like a day, and so it
Mm.
shut down the whole city. I mean, every street was covered in snow. There was no cars on the road. Every business was closed besides like two restaurants, and it was actually really cool. Like I was walking around, like I'm in kind of a city area now, and there was just kids walking around playing, building snowmen, having snowball fights. The parents were shoveling or building a snowman with them, and there was just people everywhere kind of walking around, because there was nothing else to do. It's like it was really
Oh,
cool. And then there was like one pub open, like there's an Irish pub down the way from me, and there was a bunch of people in there, and we all had our big coats on, drinking Guinness. Like, this is great.
oh,
Like, I love this.
that sounds so hobbity. I love
Yeah, I moved
it.
to a very hobbity area. I love it.
It's really nice, isn't it? If you can find those little tiny pockets of community that are enjoying the season as it should be.
Yeah, we don't have a
Yeah.
tour, but we'll just have to build one.
Yeah, that's a project for the spring.
Yeah. So how are the vibes in Glastonbury in January?
Well, it's as you know, it's a very cyclical town, so tourism completely dies off around the end of October, really, and then drifts back in a little bit for solstice, and then completely peters away this time of year until spring, really. So it's nice and quiet, and a lot of stillness out on the land. Um, I've actually been in Cornwall for the last, well, for the first half of the month. Not entirely, but I haven't really been in Glastonbury. I've been sort of here, there, and everywhere, but found some lovely little hobbity pubs as well, and just been enjoying, like nice open fires in pubs, things like that, with
Hmm.
a nice hot chocolate and good friends and good company and things like that. So that's been my January so far. Um,
I tell
yeah,
you, I've been
kind of.
I've been really grateful for warmth, this year. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm a ripe old age of 30 now, but I'm very aware of how amazing it is that we can just be in warm houses and we don't have to think about it.
Yeah,
That's an
right.
incredible thing.
Because you think about all of the fires our ancestors would have had to light before us, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of fire lighting that had to exist before we came along and turned on our central heating.
So our ancestors were such tougher people. Like, I don't know how they did it, because not only were they constantly keeping up with fire, but then they were also in windowless houses because windows, are an insulation problem. So you didn't have windows typically in like the ancient past. Now we got a little better later on. We started adding windows and things. But yeah, I mean, when we're talking about like the pagan eras of things, like if you look at
Mm,
those houses, there is no windows because like they had to keep all the heat in that building. And so like they
yeah,
basically just stayed in their little hut with their smelly animals and the smelly people and the smoke to keep warm for months at a time. Like, that's hardcore.
yeah. That's full on, isn't it? It really is. Thank you, ancestors, for doing what
Yes.
you did to grant us the lives we live today. How was your Yule? Because that was you've just told me something I didn't know, which was that Yule is the first full moon after the
After the winter
solstice.
solstice. Yeah. Now, don't quote me this or crucify me, heathens. But I don't recall the exact reason that is. I think it's because I know one, the heathens of the past, the Scandinavians, the Germans, much like the Celts, follow the lunar cycle.
Mm,
And so they would follow the path of the moon. And so obviously they would basically Yule was the last moon of the year, I believe. And so the last moon of the year is like the last one after winter solstice. Because isn't there like 13 full moons in the year? I think there is. Am I
yes.
correct in
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
I think
correct.
I think it
Yeah.
is I think it's the 13th moon of the year.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, that makes much more sense. So
yeah,
going with the old agricultural kind of calendar instead.
yeah, yeah. Now again, don't quote me on that, but it could be the first full moon of the new year, or is it the last full moon of whatever? But yeah, that's the reasoning behind it. Is that's just how they told time.
Yeah.
Whereas the calendar we have now is solar based, so it's just different.
Mm. And how was it? Don't leave us hanging. How was your Yule
Well, yeah, it was
celebration?
good. I did record, so I used to record a lot more videos of like the gatherings and things like that. I did record of this one, just a bit, just a little bit of the rituals and a little bit of the side. I mean, the property we had was beautiful. I mean, to you English out there, you probably wouldn't be able to comprehend this, but the property we just casually rented was 1,600 acres, uh, and about fairly
Amazing.
affordable, actually, all things considered. It's like a camp that they normally do like summer camps at, and they
Mm.
don't have anyone renting them out in the winter, and so I think they were quite happy to have us rent them out. Um, and so yeah, we had 1,600 acres. It was 6 miles of lake shoreline. And then there was
Oh,
this massive lodge just in the center of the property and a bunch of cabins throughout the property. And so we could, we only had 80 people, but you can have up to like 500 or 600 there.
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
A big, this was big.
Yeah, it was big. It was funny because like 80 people, that's a lot of people still. But at the same time, when you put it in a place that's meant for hundreds, I was like, whoa, we need more people for this.
Yeah.
So yeah, chances are, I mean, I've already talked to people. So if people are interested, we're gonna get it posted earlier, but I think we're gonna go back to this property next year. I'm aiming to get maybe 100, 150 out there. But we're going to start planning that in like June of this year. So we'll get on the Northern Traditions website. It's northerntraditions.org. And so hopefully we can get 150, which would be our biggest number we've ever had. Last year we did 120. But it's just crazy. Once you breach that 100 person, it turns into a festival. And so the way you plan things just has to be different.
Yeah.
And so we've had trouble kind of breaking through that next barrier because, like, right now we still like doing home cooked meals. Like I did all the meal cooking for our Yule celebration this year. I wanted to take that, so I did all but one. I did, Friday dinner, Saturday dinner, Sunday breakfast, and Sunday dinner. And I had a bunch of helpers, and we made a bunch of food for everyone. But the moment you have 150 people, that becomes such a different game.
Oh my
That
God.
is so
Yeah.
much food. It's insane.
So is it
Uh,
beyond the food? What kind of rituals did you do? How many? Was it goat sacrifice or human sacrifice?
I mostly focus on the food, so, but yeah, our main things this year is there was no sacrifices involved, people who are watching.
Freaking out.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
worry,
No, no,
we
we don't do that, kids. But we did, let's see, Friday night we always do something for the land spirits. We just always do that to smart, always acknowledging the native land that we're on. Saturday we did the spear dance, which is something I've been working on for some time. It's just a choreographed dance, in order to honor the ancestors and the warriors of the past. And so that was really cool. We did that daytime on Saturday, and then we did a what is called a road to hell ritual, which is just like a series of like people coming out and doing invocations for the dead. So that was like the Day of the Dead kind of. um and then Sunday we did, the main thing was a frigga, so being a honoring of Frigg and her handmaidens. And so we just did that inside next to the fire. We had this big roaring fire, and we had Mary, one of the women in our community. She had like the black robe on, she had a distaff, and she was like in this rocking chair. And then all of a sudden she had like her baby was crying for her, so her baby came over, so she just had this baby and this distaff and this rocking chair in front of a fire. Like, yeah, it was good vibes.
Whoa, that
It was
sounds so. I love the theatre of it all. It just sounds so
yeah.
dramatic. I love it.
Yeah, and then something I tried a little differently this year. I always like to try new things,
Yeah.
and that's something I always encourage people to do with spirituality. Is don't get stuck in a rut. Try new things. And one of the things I wanted to try this year was to do a rune chanting trance. And so
Mm.
I had like a whiteboard. I felt like a teacher. I had a whiteboard. I put all the runes on there, and we just chanted the runes from beginning to end. Basic, very, very similar to Highline. Like that. We did that for. I just said we're gonna do it until we can't do it no more, and see what happens. And so we had
Amazing.
everyone that had drums. I had a rattle. I was in the center, and it started off. People were trying to get the runes, get the pattern, but by the end, I mean, there was people completely out of it. I mean, I saw
Oh,
people just like almost having like an outer body experience. There was people crying. Someone was like had the drum, and I saw them like flailing about. So like people were able to get into like kind of a heavy trance with it.
whoa,
Um,
that's
yeah. So
powerful.
yeah, so we did that for probably 30, 40 minutes before I was like out of oxygen, because I was like trying to keep the rhythm up and everything. And then we did like a slow down where we just chanted them really slow, like really slow to kind of bring people down from it.
Oh
Because
my God,
it was really high energy.
that sounds so epic. Ooh. There is something about chanting the ancient words, isn't there, that
Yeah.
really rattles something in the bones.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, it was good. It was honestly like I'm really proud of everyone. Like honestly, everyone in the fellowship is incredible. We have a lot of people that are reoccurring people that have been coming for years. You know, seeing people that I saw 4 years ago still coming to events. People coming for the first time, all the way to the people to help run it, the stewards and the leaders. It was just a really well done event. You know, no one got too drunk, but there was a little drinking. You know, everyone was safe. No one got hurt. Everyone made it home safe because we had the snowstorm coming in at the same time. And so we kind of had to come together and say, hey, how are we going to survive this? And this is good to lean into the Kaliak is discussing this as well, because we knew coming in on Friday that was an incoming snowstorm and it was coming Sunday day. And so we had to make a decision. Hey, are we going to send people home early on Saturday and kind of cut short of the event so they could get home safe? Are we going to
Mm.
ride it out and see how it goes? And so, you know, most people obviously didn't want to leave. And so we were like, well, we're going to ride it out Sunday and then leave together on Monday. And we had a few people decide,
Absolutely.
yeah, a few people made the decision to leave Sunday. Uh, and it was really slow going. Luckily, they made it safe, but they were saying they were going like 30 miles an hour, traveling, you know, hundreds of miles
Yeah.
because they were just going through the storm. And I was like, well, I think it's better if we leave together. That way we can all support one another. And so, you know, the majority of us left on Monday morning together. And we all took our time. Some people got hotels and everyone made it home safe. And so I think, yeah, leaning into the Kaliak conversation here is, you know,
Yeah.
when it comes to winter, you can't command winter.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can only make deals with it.
Exactly. I mean, when you hear about the folklore tales of the Cailleach, and people really revered her as this kind of harsh hag of winter, um, and that she would be kind of known to carry a blackthorn staff, and she would crack it on the ground and splinter ice across the land, and that would be that. You know, there would be no negotiating with the Cailleach. It's, you know, when winter has come, it's come, and you know, she's such a gateway, really, isn't she? She's a sort of threshold keeper between life and death, as well as you know, the kind of the end of the year in that sense, you know, the beginning of winter. But I like that. I like that there's still this respect for her,
Yeah.
you know, of honoring her and kind of working with her, like you said, leaning into it. You know, you don't ask her to move out the way, or please, can you kind of keep the autumn going as long as we can so we don't have to deal with
Yeah.
winter. It's kind of just like, okay, winter is here. How can we work with you, Kaliak? How can we do this dance with you?
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
should let's acknowledge the pronunciation thing because yeah, I made my video and man, you know, I'm American. I'm American. I got a Kentucky accent when I want one. But the problem is there's a lot of different ways to pronounce a lot of different things. And so when we look at something like the Kaliak, I've always heard it pronounced as the Kaliak. I've literally everyone that's ever talked about Kaliak has said Kaliak. And so I make a video about the Kaliak, and all of a sudden, why am I sound like George W. Bush now? I don't know. But
It's getting worse. Just go on. Your
no,
own
yeah, yeah,
accent.
no, no. But anyways, yeah, I made the Kaliak video, and you know, I've only ever heard anyone pronounce Kaliak as Kaliak, and then I get so
Yeah.
many comments, not just of one different pronunciation. I kid you not, it was 10 to 15 different types of pronunciations of this thing, and people are like, it's actually pronounced as Kaleo, and I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, and so I think that's, you know, I just want to acknowledge that if you are like, well, that's just not how I've heard it. You know, I'm only Kubi and I both are only sharing the pronunciation we have heard in our entire lives. And I recognize there are different pronunciations and different ways people would have heard it. And I recognize that in the original Irish, it's probably different as well, just as in Gaelic and Gaelic, everything in between. But for the course of this video, we'll be saying Kailiak as Kubi and I have heard it our entire lives. And that is sadly the course of nature. It's the course of language. Is there's different ways to pronounce different things, even within our modern era. And so I don't pronounce Thor as Thor. I don't pronounce Odin as Odin. I pronounce it as I've heard it my whole life. And so, yeah, that's my soapbox moment for the day. Anyways, the Gaelic.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's exactly, and I think there's always different pronunciations for things, isn't there? Depending on
Yeah.
which part of the British Isles your folklore is kind of coming from, or even, you know, further afield
Well,
than that.
even the fact that you said the British Isles, like, whoop, nope, it's the Anglo-Celtic Isles. Otherwise, people get mad.
Oh yeah, sorry, that one. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
so at the end of the day, the best thing we can say is we mean no offense. We're only going with what the language we know how to speak. And
Yeah.
language goes beyond just English, Spanish, Italian, whatever. Language is also local, or what you've been growing up with, or just the language of what you're discussing. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that gets lost on us, is especially as language has become a little bit more of a way to get so offended these days. Is so many of us don't actually mean to offend. It's just the only words we know in which to describe the thing we're speaking of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes it accessible, doesn't it? If you use the most sort of most well-known pronunciation,
Yeah,
then more people kind of it reaches more people, I think. But yeah, I mean the Kaliak, she's one of the oldest, potentially one of the oldest deities that we have.
yeah.
I think originating in Scotland, isn't she? And she's also known as Bera in Scotland as well. But found her way all around, yeah, like you said, the Celtic Isles, the British Isles, and I'm not sure about Europe, but certainly in these areas,
So
she's
yes,
one of the older.
one of my side research. So I was kind of discussing this a little bit in my series of videos in December. Is I think there's a lot of connections between the Kaliak and Frau Halle in Germany, and
Ooh,
Frau Faste and Frau Perkte. So there's a series of giantess-like women that exist in the alpine regions of Germany that are tied to mountains and snow in winter. And a lot of the legends are eerily similar to that of the Kaliak. Um,
is that in the
and
sense that they were talking about the mountains being formed by her
yeah,
dropping
yeah,
rocks out the basket and stuff like that? Is there similar
yeah,
things?
yeah, similar things. So
Oh,
yeah, well, like the main story of Valhalla, and obviously we don't see this Kaliak, but in the same way, story basically there's two girls. It's in Grimm's fairy tales. There's two girls, and one's like more dirty and well less unkept and kind of like like ooh the improper girl, and then there's the one that's really pretty and does everything proper and cleans the house well, and they both get sent to live in Frau Hala's house. And Frau Hala, she has a feather pillow, and that the girls have to shake it out in order to like appease the Frau Hala. And when they shake it out, that's what makes the snow in the world. And so Valhalla is the one that creates snow, and it's the feathers from her pillow. And and then there's a whole story about how if you're the good girl and you do the good chores and you listen to Valhalla, you get rewards. And if you
mm.
don't listen to Valhalla and you don't do the chores well, you get punished. And so I think again, there's this kind of the story of like you have to behave during winter, otherwise the winter goddess punishes you.
Okay. So kind of like keeping yourself kind of organized in winter, or do you think it's more
Yeah, I
just sort
think
of going with the
we're listening
season?
to parents because it is a fairy tale. So I think just
Yeah.
with like the wild hunt, I was kind of suggesting this as well in my videos. Is like a lot of the wild hunt legends I think are mostly to tell children not to go out at night, especially during winter,
Yeah.
because winter it's dark. And it's more dangerous, and so your chances of disappearing as a child, getting lost, are much higher in winter. And so I think they had these stories to tell their children, like, "Hey, if you go out, the wild hunt's going to get you," and kind of
Mm.
keep them from going out. Just how there's legends, I think even in Sweden, there's legends of creatures in riverways that take children, and I think these mostly exist to tell children, like, "Hey, don't go near the river because you could die." And so giving them a little bit of fear over these natural things that can actually kill them.
It's funny, isn't it? It's funny when we look at these kind of the more sort of darker aspects of the goddesses as well, and they're often quite feared. But like you said, when there's fear, there's often these like deep kind of wisdom sort of gatekeepers within that as well. The same with Ceridwen, who's often considered a darker goddess um, in the Mabinogion, and the story of her cauldron and Guion back, and he gets to stir this for a while. Eventually, he tastes this elixir, which is meant for her son, and she does this angry chase and turns into several things and swallows him into her stomach. And he gestates in the darkness of her womb for those 9 months, and comes out as the famous bard we know as Taliesin. And that story, although she gets this kind of bad rap as being a dark goddess with kind of a fierce, angry kind of attitude in that story, I feel like the deeper wisdom in that is speaks to allowing a sort of surrendering to being consumed by darkness and
Mm,
allowing a period of gestation in the womb of life, or the womb of a season, or the womb of a cycle like winter, in order to come out as something greater than what we once were. Because when we think of Taliesin, he's one of the greatest bards, incredibly intelligent, poetic, very famous. Celtic bard, and all from this story of being captured by this dark goddess and held in her womb for all of that time. So again, it's this thing of, it's got a lot of fear within that story, but there's an invitation into that. There's an invitation of, what can happen if you go into darkness, if you go into a darker season and hold yourself there. Kind of like the cosmic womb. What happens if you go into the cosmic womb of winter and gestate and put projects down and simply allow oneself to just dream onto a blank canvas? You know what I mean? So I love that these stories, they do have this edge to them. There is a darkness to a lot of these stories, but often those are the ones that hold the greatest wisdom. Almost like when you have a bad trip, they're the ones with the greatest wisdom for the soul and the biggest lessons. And same with these stories.
No, that's really interesting. And I think one of the things I was reflecting on as you were talking is it seems like in a lot of the Celtic stories, there is just so many layers of transformation between each character. Um,
Mm.
like like the first legend is like the one like the main like goddess figure, and she like is eaten and then like impregnated and then reborn and then like comes back again, and it's like the same lover to a different person, but it's a different character. And it's like this is what make Celtic legends so weird.
Yeah, yeah,
But at the
yeah.
same time, I mean, that we do change as people and we do go through these different periods. And I think winter is a very interesting part of the transformation process.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting that we talk about these cycles and these character changes and these different personas that they take on within these stories, because some might think that speaks directly to an understanding of reincarnation, whereas others might say that speaks to the different seasons of a person, of a personality that we go through, maybe even within the year, but certainly within a lifetime. That we're not meant to be these kind of static characters. We are meant to change and evolve and grow and morph and explore different avenues within ourselves all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting. Because what next month we have a few things to talk about. We have like Bridget, St. Bridget's Day,
Yeah.
in bulk. And then I think there's a couple like there's like technically like the Charming of the Plow festival and stuff like that. And it does bring like the first signs of spring. Like that's the first signs of spring start slowly coming out in February. But January really is like the dark month. This is the
Yeah.
month of like there is no life, there is only winter. So it is very much, like the time of the Kaleak, for sure, is this time of year.
Yeah, yeah, and to truly practice surrendering into the darkness, the unknown, the dream time. I often found that I really struggled with winter when I was resisting that. And since leaning more into it, more into hibernation, I really quite enjoy it to some degree now. Even with coughs and colds.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't like I started this podcast every morning. I mean, I'd never realized how much annoying it is, but yeah, every morning I wake up just like like full of snot right here. And I just have to get it out first thing in the morning. It's like not the best way to wake up. I'm like, I hate waking up like this, like full of snot, you know?
Yeah. Hey, it's all part of it, right? It's a death rebirth.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting too. We obviously talk about this from a European perspective, a Northern Hemisphere perspective, but it is baffling to me that there is like anyone that lives in the center of the world, they don't have the same perspective on the seasonal changes. And even though winter does have its hardships, it does have the snotty colds, it does have the shorter days and all this. I don't think I could live without it. I would
Mm.
feel very, very out of balance if I lived in a place that did not have seasonal changes.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. I do actually really enjoy that about England, that they're not as defined as they could be, and perhaps what they used to be. We do have this kind of murk between January and March where it's a bit like, what kind of season is this?
Yeah.
But I certainly love, it's nice to feel part of something, part of the cycle of nature. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
rather than
And
fight it.
well, something again, like kind of going back to the earlier conversation of like going with nature is, let nature have your back in a way, like let nature support you. And the same with, spring, you have the growing energy, you have all the new life coming up. Let's let support your new changes in life. But winter can also support you in a way.
Yeah.
I think, we talk about rune chanting as well. The rune Isa is the ice rune. And one of the most interesting interpretations I heard out of it is Esau is literally just a line, like just a singular line. That's the only representation of the rune. And it's like, yes, ice freezes and you have to slow down, but
Mm.
ice can also build bridges that you didn't expect.
Mm. I like that.
Yeah. So I think, taking that time to slow down and just reflect might make new connections that you didn't think were there before, especially if we looking back on that previous year and everything that's happened to you. Take this time to slow down and be like, whoa, what did happen?
Mm. I like that because it goes directly against New Year's resolutions. It keeps the focus on reflection instead. So rather
Yeah.
than kind of launching forward, which doesn't go with the energy of the land at all, it's that, actually looking back on what has just dismantled, looking back on what has just been, and what we're letting go of, and parts of ourselves that we're letting go of as well.
So
So
that was one of the things I brought up for us to talk about. Like, what's one of the big lessons you learned from this last year in reflection?
I have learnt a big thing around trying to control outcomes. Actually, it was a really
Mm,
big lesson for me because I'm the kind of person that likes to have like a 5 year plan, if not a 10 year plan. I'm Capricorn rising, and my mentality is quite methodical and linear. And over the last couple of years, I've basically learnt that whatever plans I have, the universe has greater plot twists.
mm,
So I've basically learnt to just go with the flow a little bit more this year, to kind of throw my plans a little bit out the window, and just to trust in destiny, and to sort of try and read the land omens a bit more of my life. So instead of planning ahead, I'm just trying to sort of see what life is trying to get me to look at, and where the flow of energy is, and where things don't feel like they're going against the grain. And I find that's working really well for me already. Like, life seems to be in a faster slipstream since
yeah.
having that realization. And it's everything feels easy and magical and like full of joy when that happens. So
Yeah.
yeah, letting go of controlling outcomes. Big
Hmm.
lesson.
Yeah. Go with the flow. Yeah.
Go with the flow. Yeah. Yeah. What about you?
I think for me, one of the biggest lessons is surrender.
Yeah.
And that's kind of going with the flow as well. But I think when you're suffering, we so much want to get out of the suffering. Like we want, like our brain goes in that survival mode, and we just want to find the solution to the suffering so quickly. But I
Yeah.
think there is great power in surrendering to that and just being like, no, I am suffering right now, and just leaning into that. I'm not saying like do a downward spiral of depression or anything like that. I'm saying accept the suffering as a lesson and sit with it and let it be what it is. And then I think when you actually, wasn't in Harry Potter when they're in the Philosopher's Stone, and they're in like the snare, and like they're struggling, and the answer is to actually just let it go. And that's actually the solution to the suffering, is to embrace it and just let it go.
Yeah.
um and
Great
yeah.
wisdom in that, isn't there? Such great wisdom in it. Because like, I even noticed it. I had an example of this the other day. We were standing out in the cold, me and a few friends, um, and it was really cold. And my friend said, if we just accept that it's cold, we might actually start to warm up. And we tried it just for a couple of seconds. We were like, huh, actually feel warmer immediately, just in the
Mm,
accepting of like, bloody hell, we're cold. Rather than,
yeah.
oh, I don't want to be cold. It's like, okay, we are cold. We are really cold and wet. And that's the miserable reality of this. And then we started to be like, oh, we're fine. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things I've been really into this last year, is getting more into cold exposure and doing the Wim Hof stuff and whatnot. And one of
Oh,
I'm really lucky. There's actually a place nearby that does the cold baths, and so you get to do like a 20 minutes of sauna, and then you go into the cold bath afterwards.
yeah.
And that cold bath, oh my gosh, it is freezing cold.
Oh,
And I
so
think
brave.
yeah, like I feel like when you actually you take that and you go to the cold, like that's one of the big Wim Hof things, is you go to
Mm.
suffering before it comes to you. You're much more prepared for
Ooh,
when it happens. And
I like
so,
that.
like,
What was that line? Go towards the suffering before it comes to you.
yeah.
That's a good line, Jacob. I like that. That's a great one.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's something I've really been living by. And yeah, doing those cold showers, the cold exposure, it kind of teaches you, like, you do have to surrender, because when your body goes in that fight or flight mode, no matter what it is, because that's what anxiety is. Like, anxiety is in our body's like reaction to the external, and it puts us into fight or flight mode. The thing is, like adrenaline, anxiety, all this, we have that biologically to protect us from predators. Like that's why we have adrenaline. It's like, no, I need to go get that animal and kill it and eat it. I need to protect myself from this thing trying to kill me. And so adrenaline is like a really important thing. But since we don't have those external threats like we used to, at least as like the Western societies are, our adrenaline is spiking for stupid reasons. Like we're sitting in line in Starbucks and we're anxious because there's so many people around us, and so our body's spiking us with adrenaline. We're getting anxious, and the answer is we just need to let
Yeah.
it go, and we
It's
teach
probably not
ourselves.
drink. I was going to say it's probably the 5 million spoonfuls of sugar in that Starbucks
That
coffee
doesn't
that
help either.
triggers
Yeah.
that anxiety more than anything.
Yeah. Sugar and caffeine don't help either. Uh, but yeah, but one of the things we can teach ourselves to embrace that anxiety and to kind of combat it is by going to that suffering. And that's why, yeah, I think the cold exposure is really good because, yeah, it sucks. Like there's nothing enjoyable to me about going into freezing cold water. It's not an enjoyable experience. But there's such an interesting mental shift that happens because I kind of cataloged it last time I did it because you do it for like 4 or 5 minutes. And so I got in, and right away you can feel like almost the senses from the brains going to the other parts of the body telling get out, like you were
Yeah.
dying, you were freezing to death, get out. And so it's like I almost intercepted those signals from my brain. I was like, no, it's okay, you're going to live. And I kind of try to I think that
Mm.
terminology reprogram and stuff like that is being used more. I kind of reprogram those signals of like, no, you will live, you will be stronger. And I change those signals to the rest of my body. And in about 30, 40 seconds, those signals went from you need to get out of here, you need to get out of here to calm. I was able to release, like let it all go.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
cool because those are great transferable skills, right? Because then you can
Yeah.
apply that mind over matter to anything like emotional regulation on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis, let alone just cold water.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, it is a discipline in the meditation for sure. And I think, again, winter is that. Winter is suffering, but I think there's a lot of symbolism and a lot of ritual in going to winter, going to the Kaliak and embracing the winter, leaning into it and seeing what lessons you can learn from it rather than trying to fight it and hate it and all this. Winter is a powerful teacher if we let it be.
Yeah, it's part of it's in a way it's part of the hero's journey of the
Mm,
year. If you kind of see the hero's journey but playing out through the whole seasons, then going into the underworld to defeat and slay the dragon before you can come back valiant and strong with wisdom and gold for the community. That is the descent of winter, isn't it? You can't just cut that out. As
yeah.
tempting as it is to go to Magaluf.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It creates real warriors, I think, when you can walk next to the season and journey with the season
Yeah.
and descend with the season. Then you can truly say that you're part of nature, you know.
So this is a kind of an interesting aside, but it's something I've been exploring more. So what
Mm.
does it mean for you to be a warrior?
Ooh. I think being a warrior is about strength. So strength of the mind, um, heroicism, so the ability to put yourself before others. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it, isn't it? The ability to kind of conquer the mind with greater strength, with greater courage, with good virtues, values, integrity, all of those things. Kind of, it's like where does the warrior and the knight begin and end? It's a very similar
Mm,
crossover in
yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
What
Because I
about
think,
you?
yeah, I mean, well, yeah, it's just something I'm kind of exploring because for me, I've never been a very macho man. I've never leaned into that. I wouldn't describe myself as a feminine male. I would just,
Mm,
I've never gone for the alpha male, the Chad. Like, this is not me. And so I
mm,
always felt kind of rejecting of the warrior, like, oh, I'm not the warrior. Like, I've always been like, oh, I like the wizard. The wizard's cool, like the wanderer. The hermit.
mm.
These kind of more aspects of masculinity.
Yeah.
Um, but in reflection, like after the vision quest, like one of the big lessons is that I needed to embrace the path of the warrior more. And I was like, oh, I don't want to become this beefy dude. Like I have this misconception of what strength is, of what being a warrior is. It's not necessarily someone who goes and beats someone up, but it is someone that
Yeah.
presents strength.
Yeah.
And that comes in many different forms.
Oh,
And I,
yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that it's like you said, I think it's being strong in mind, body, and spirit. And so for me, it
Yeah.
is, keeping those three things up and then assisting others in maintaining their mind, body, and spirit at the same time, and being protective of those things.
Yeah, there's always an element of sacrifice with a warrior, isn't there? The ability to do things on behalf of the greater good or on behalf of the collective. And like you said, very. I actually think it's very little to do with physical strength, but more the mind, body, and the spirit combined. I think that's
Yeah.
exactly it. It's yeah, how a person approaches the challenges of life and the hurdles of life more so.
Yeah, I think like something I said years ago, it was actually during a Yule celebration, maybe 2 or 3 years ago,
Mm.
is we no longer need to live in the age of the axe, we need to live in the age of the shield. It's we have to
Mm.
cast aside our desire to attack and only preserve our powers of defense.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, because we all see what war has done. We've had enough war on this planet. We've had enough bloodshed. And so if we all start reflecting more on what it means to be a warrior and a protector, I think it'll be better because
Mm.
we need to stop solving our problems by attacking them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, I like that. And then there's the reflective part as well, because when you've got your shield, it's your mirror.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean people will disagree with me for sure on that. But yeah, to me it's like the more you attack, the more things just come back at you in the end.
Mm.
Um, and like even doing the spear dance, that was one of the reasons I started doing the spear dance ritual and wanting to do it. Is it to me was a devotion of the warrior without necessarily need to be for attacking. We
Yeah,
weren't attacking anyone, but we were still presenting that warrior spirit within ceremony. And I think that's still a very important thing.
yeah, absolutely. Learning when to kind of use that strength whilst
Yeah.
still holding on to it all the time.
Yeah, and the way we did it, we had the warriors on the outside, like the spear dancers, and then the audience in the center. And so like they were
Mm.
kind of performing like a protective circle. But then the spear dance, it had people like we had people who were veterans in there, but we also had women in there. We had
Oh, wow.
people who weren't, what you would consider physically strong. We had people of all walks of life in the spear dance because we can all be that warrior.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds so good. Is this something that you channeled on your Vision Quest? Did you
Yeah, well,
take
not
you through?
not channeled, but it was the vision. So the
Okay.
gift at the end of the Vision Quest, I was given like 4 tasks, and one of them was get people to sing and dance, connect people with their ancestors, follow the path of the warrior, and that fourth one's just for me. So
Oh, I love
yeah, yeah,
it. So good. Mission complete.
yeah. But yeah, no, now it keeps going. I mean, the way I structured it, and this is very different than how I thought about things in the past. Is the spirit dance I created it, but now it needs to be its own thing, and so I've kind of built this whole structure around it. Is if you've done the spirit dance once with me, you can perform it yourself.
Yeah.
And then it needs to spread, but you need to do it the exact same way. Like this is the spear dance, and now you know how to do it. Go share the spear dance.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the big lessons of the spear dance during the Vision Quest, is that we all used to have something like this. There's some cultures
Yeah.
that still have it surviving, but we obviously know you can see spear warriors in a lot of the artifacts of Scandinavia, in the artifacts of the Celtic world, and so they most likely had a spear dance of some kind, but we've lost them. And so we just have to make them again. And this is how we do it by doing it. Um, yeah, and reforging what we used to know.
Oh, that's so cool. Love that. Well, I was going to say, what would your if you're sort of thinking about January rituals, so thinking of the kind of pagan demographic that we speak
Mm.
to, what would you say is a ritual that somebody could do at home to honor the kind of the season of January or the kind of the mindset of that of getting through it?
Um, me, these days I'm a little bit less into the woo woo, which is kind of ironic. But like something I did last night, I'm much more in the throes of life these days. Obviously, like anyone that's watching this video can tell I'm back in an apartment now. I talked
Mm.
about that in a video coming up of the transition back into to being grounded and having a place to live. I am much more in the throes of everyday life these days. And it's like just like something for me is like even though yes we're in this time of nesting and being in our cozy sweaters and our blankets and watching TV and playing video games and all this, you still need that. You need to give yourself the time to be with yourself And I noticed my sleep was starting to get really affected. I'm very protective of my sleep because I was watching TV too late, and stuff like that. And so last night I told myself, okay, I'm going to go to bed at midnight, but from 11 to midnight, I will do nothing. But for
Mm.
1 hour, that's like, it's, kind of an hour that's kind of like in the air anyways. Who does anything big between 11 and 12? It's like, no, for 1 hour, I sat in this chair and I just reflected and thought. And, and I might have pulled up my journal and kind of flipped through pages. But other than that, I just kind of reflected on people I've met, on things I've done, and had that as processing time. And so I think it's really easy to lose track of time because it's like, oh, we have so much time in the winter. It's all dark. And so you're in your house all the time. But don't lose sight of the fact that you still need an hour every day to just process things. And that to me is a ritual in itself of slowing down, becoming that ice and just reflecting.
Oh, I think that's perfect. It really summarizes that going into the dream weaving space. And I know a lot of people, myself included, really benefit from that spaciousness this time of year with the mind, that presence with the mind, and that chance to sort of take stock and reload, before you launch into the spring later on. It's a real time of rejuvenation, isn't it? I do the
Yeah.
same thing, but I have more baths this time of year, right? I really the candlelit baths, and just sometimes I don't even listen to music this time of year. I just enjoy silence
Mm.
and candlelight and presence, and it can be really beautifully deep, those moments of presence with yourself.
Oh, how beautiful is the sound of gently falling snow in a winter morning? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't waste that. Yeah.
exactly. And rain, the sound of rain on
Yeah.
on tin roofs when it's at this time of year in the evenings is just absolute bliss, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is interesting because like when you ask that question, like me in the past, I might have given you some like really big, complicated, ritual you needed to do.
Mm.
But when I look back at this last weekend, doing the Yule gathering, even though we had the spear dance, we had all these big, big rituals, and we have the
Mm.
showiness and the outfits and things like that. One of my favorite moments of the weekend is right when the snow started. I separated myself from everyone, and I went on they had this beautiful porch, and I just went on this deck, and I had this nice little roof, and I sat there with my coffee, and I just listened to the sound of snow, like.
Oh,
And like it was just such a peaceful moment. And I did not move from that spot until my coffee was done. And I just savored every moment of it.
oh,
And it's moments
gorgeous.
like that. Yeah, there's moments like that that heal me more than anything else these days.
Yeah, yeah, it's the little things. It really becomes about the little things that happen when you slow down so much. The things that people don't notice when they're being too busy.
Mm.
The rest of the world kind of can miss that. Yeah, it's beautiful.
There's a
And
book. I
there's
don't know if I have it. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, no, go ahead. That sounds
No, I
more
was
in
just gonna
line.
say there's a book. I don't know if I don't even know where it went. I might have loaned it out to someone because I just got this big, beautiful bookshelf and put my surprisingly large collection of pagan books on it now. There was a book called The Misfilled Path, and it was a book on Celtic shamanism. And it like I really liked its like kind of its opening, its thesis is that the Celtic gods exist in the early morning light between the mist and the morning.
Oh,
And it's like that's where you find the Celtic gods. And I think, for me, it's those moments of transition, whether it's the mist from the morning or the snow into the the gently falling snow. It's all moments like that that we actually you see the gods. I thought you were crying for a second, but no, you're just sneezing.
so beautiful.
Yeah, get it all out. It's such a beautiful.
It's so beautiful. No, that's I really do love that though. That's such a stunning, simple way of stripping back what paganism is. And I think that's where the kind of the crossover between the gods as representatives of nature lies as well, is that what they were representing and what they were kind of trying to harness within their personalities was the essence of nature and the cycles of the seasons. There's a beautiful way of putting it. I was going to say as well that a nice thing to focus on this time of year with being present with both the land and ourselves and the inner dreaming world, beyond journaling and just being still, is also self-care. So there's a few lovely little bits left on hedgerows that you can gather to use for self-care things. Something I like to do, and something I'm going to do actually, because I've been drinking this when actually, what am I doing? I'm a witch. I need to be. So I'm going to go and forage some rosemary later on and get some honey and some honey mead, and you can mix that all together to make a really good cough mixture.
Nice.
That's a lovely thing to do. And you can also use Scots pine needles. That's really good for the throat as well. You can simmer that into syrup, into a little elixir. And what else? I wrote something down earlier. Oh, yes. I don't know if you have them really in America, but we have the last petals that are left really in Britain at this time are the gorse petals. We have a lot of gorse and heather left this time of year. And gorse is this beautiful, bright yellow flower with spiky little leaves. And it's such a nice reminder to find that internal sun in the middle of winter. So I often try and forage a few of those and mix it with Epsom salt and have it as like a nice little foot spa in some hot water. That can be so, so nourishing in winter as
I like
well.
the way gorse smells too. It's a little coconutty.
Yeah, it's really, really quite delicious. Yeah, so lots of things to tend to the heart. And one thing that's come up a lot in our group of friends that we keep saying at the moment is that it's about taking the summer sun indoors for the winter and bringing it into the hearth, or the inner sun, finding the inner sun in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful way of looking at things. So spending more time with your loved ones and spending time tending to your inner hearth,
Yeah.
or whether you have one in the home, if you're very lucky to have a hearth in the home.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful time to build relationship with the element of fire.
Oh
And
yeah, or just a relationship with your home. I mean, for me, like the house spirit is such an important thing, and maintaining that spirit of the house.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that brings blessings you wouldn't expect. And
huge.
so we have this concept of like spring cleaning, but I think actually winter is a good time to clean the home. You're in the home so much, so maintain that spirit of your home because you have the time and you're stuck in here anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And for reading books as well, getting through books in the home, getting all snuggled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, I can confirm Kubi doesn't even own the TV, so she's not much of a Netflix person, anyways.
I do have Netflix, but I seldom use it.
Yeah, it's on your laptop that is broken and someone needs to replace for her.
Gonna end up with like 10 new laptops by next week. Woo woo.
Yeah. I mean, we got some sugar daddies and sugar mamas watch this. You never know.
No! God, cancel
Anyways,
that.
so yeah, to kind of wrap us up, I mean, we talked about not liking New Year's resolutions, but I mean, planning is still something I think is good for winter. Is like sitting down and making a plan, but you don't enact that plan until spring.
Yeah.
So what is your plan for this next year? What are things looking like for QB?
Well, I'm quite excited to announce that I launched a CIC this last autumn, really, and I was waiting for some grants to come through to sort of make it into basically an actual job that I could live off. So that's the first grant has indeed come through, which is a dream come true, and it means I'm going to be offering a lot of Celtic folklore mental health workshops to support the people of Glastonbury. So I'm really, really excited to be of service to the people, and it's going to sort of kickstart next month. So I think a lot of my year is going to be focused on that beautiful project as it unfolds.
Yeah.
I've got the Songs of Arwen as well as part of that, which is an exploration into Proto-Celtic words that we're turning into songs and sharing with the community.
Was that
But
the
we've
drum
already
thing you posted?
Yes, you may have
Oh, that's
seen it
cool.
on my social media accounts. Yeah, sort of just starting chanting but interestingly, it's turned into we're already being booked out in festivals and stuff like that for the summer. So I feel like we might actually be going a little bit on tour with that as well. So that's going to be quite busy. So looking to get a van quite fast and figure out the logistics of that. But it's all
Kubi,
quite
do you even know
exciting.
how to drive?
No, not yet. Big things
I was
on the
about to say, I don't
horizon
think you
this year.
do.
Luckily, a few of the band members do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of exciting things that I sort of, again, what happens when you almost sort of let go of things a little bit and see
Yeah.
where life wants to take it. And that's kind of happened with this. I've kind of fed it into the fire and got it burning, and then it's kind of taken off by itself,
Yeah,
which is really, really delightful to see. So yeah, I'm sort of not making too many plans. I'm actually
it
almost
doesn't sound like it.
I mean, those are the things that are unraveling,
Yeah, yeah.
like, or unfurling is probably the better word. They are unfurling into reality. And I'm just going to see where they want to go, where the natural life in it wants to go, and follow that.
Yeah, nice.
What about
Uh,
you? What have you got planned?
so yeah, there's a few things I'm planning right now. One of them you probably don't actually know about. So well,
Ooh.
see, well, one of them is I'm starting a space here in Cincinnati. So I am in Cincinnati, Ohio now, mostly because my family's around here. That's one of the reasons I came back. It's like one of the things I was reflecting on with Kubi before this podcast started. Is my grandparents are just getting really sickly, and so it's just been time for me to slow down the travel. And so it kind of felt like the natural progression is to move here in Cincinnati, which is ironic because I was born about 20 miles from here. Um, and so it is interesting. Like we talk about like the hero's journey, and part of the hero's journey is going back home. And when you're in the middle of the journey, you never expect to actually return home. You know, you're like in the middle of it. And so, you know, of course, when I'm running around in the Highlands of Scotland or in Glastonbury, like the last place I think I would end up is Cincinnati. But right now, I'm getting myself established here, and I'm starting a monthly shaman circle. And so what that's going to entail is sharing circles that I picked up in Glastonbury a bit. So mostly from Kubi and her compadre Loki. I really like that the setup of what they did is, you know, just getting people together as much as you can and just sharing and having a space for people to be open and get things off their chest. And so we're going to be doing that once a month, and then we're going to alternate. So 1 month we'll do the sharing, and then the next month we'll do drum ceremonies. And so we'll be doing power animal work, ancestral work, and then we'll go back to sharing circles and just repeat that process and maybe do some special stuff on the solstices and the equinoxes and things like that. But that's going to be a low cost thing. So I'm actually not going to make any money off of that. That's purely a way for me to give back. I already found a space for it. It's going to be on the north side of town. And so if it is meant for more local people, but as long as you're within driving distance of Cincinnati, if it's something you're interested in, I'll be putting more information on my website, just jacobtodson.com. Yeah, I'll probably start a newsletter and things like that and just get it going. And so just want to see where that goes, see how I can help people. And it's going to be open to anyone. And so it's not just for pagans, it's for anyone that's on a healing journey. So whereas the Fellowship of Northern Traditions is more of my pagan side of work, these sharing circles and stuff like that is for anyone that's looking to do some healing.
Oh, that sounds so nice. I love what I love about this, Jacob, is that you've taken your magic that you've gleaned from around all your adventures, and you've brought it and rooted it into your home place. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's good to see that you're still able to kind of be your shamanic self, even in a kind of a normal life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's funny because like I was showing it could be my apartment, which I'm being very protective of actually showing the whole thing. That's because I want it to be my relaxing space. But it's very like modern. Like a lot of very modern looking furniture. But then there is a corner of feathers and bones. Like you're like, wow, look at this normal mid-century modern apartment. And you turn the corner and there's like the shrine of bones and feathers and drums. It's like, whoa, where'd that come from?
I love that. Got to have one corner that's a little bit gnarly, haven't you? At the very
Yeah.
least.
um but yeah, and then the other thing I'm actually pursuing is and this is what you definitely don't know about is I'm trying to make tattooing my career.
Oh, I didn't even know you've done it.
Yeah, so I actually have one tattoo of myself already that I did. um yeah, I don't think it'll be easy to show, but I'll show you. I'll send you a picture afterwards. But yeah, it's something I was really sitting down with it, like the YouTube. It's been a great way to make money over the last few years, and it's something I continue to want to do. But I've always wanted to see what the next thing is, and I really sat with it, and I was like, I think doing spiritual, like selling almost like a spiritual experience with tattooing. So this will be a precursor for you and for anyone that's listening. So the way I want to do this is, at the end of the day, I'm not the best artist in the world. Like I went to art school, I'm good, I know what I'm doing to some degree. I'm never going to
Mm.
be able to be the person that does like, you know, a tattoo of your mother on your elbow. Like that's just not what I do. But
Well,
what I
that's
love,
disappointing.
but what I want to do is tap into this connection with the spiritual, with ancestry, and kind of combine it with this purpose of mine. And
Mm.
so the experience would be someone reaches out, says, "Hey, I want to do a tattoo." And then the two elements we look for is, what do you want this tattoo to do for you? And who are your ancestors? And then we'll both look into your ancestry and what ancient designs and symbolism they had. And then
Oh,
we'll look for a way to combine that with a relatively modern design for a tattoo. So the tattoo has a spiritual purpose and a spiritual connection for you. And we'll do it in that style of your ancestry.
that's
Um,
such a good
and so
idea.
it's definitely going to be more of a shamanic experience. Like when you come in, like this is just what I'm kind of building in my mind. We'll probably do a drum ceremony, possibly. We'll do some cleansing, and then we actually do the tattoo itself. Because I think that's, to me, the way I like tattoos. All my tattoos are very simple, but all
Mm.
my tattoos are meaningful. And so
Hmm.
that's what I want to bring into the tattooing world for myself.
I
But
love that.
before we get there, I need to practice. And so I've just started practicing my skills. It's been 7 years since I graduated university. And so I really need to get back into the art skills and just get the basics down, do my apprenticeship. But hopefully by the end of the year, I can go ahead and start moving forward with that as my career path.
That's so exciting. And I can really see that being so popular because I think it's so true. People want real meaning behind their tattoos. And when you look back into the kind of the older ancestral ways, tattoos would have been to mark, the rights of the family and the traditions of the family more than anything. So
Mm-hmm.
looking into that history alongside it's going to be super sacred. And creating ceremonial space for a tattoo, of course, as
Yeah,
well, is another thing. Because sometimes it feels so weird to go to a tattoo shop and just you're getting this permanent
it's
thing which means
clinical.
something to you, and in a clinical setting, yeah, it's odd, isn't it? It should be candle lit and mysterious. There should be sage or
Yeah.
something going on, or
Yeah, well, definitely a mix, definitely a
yeah,
mix. I want you to be safe. I don't want to get you an infected tattoo. I want you to be clean, I want it to be good. But yeah, I want to add on top of that because yeah, no, I'm very
yeah,
similar. Is when I think of like a tattoo, it's very, very personal. And so I want
yeah,
to create environments that allow for a more personal and spiritual tattoo for people. And because I think holding space, creating environment, and doing these things, that's what I'm good at.
yeah.
And so I'm going to combine that with these skills and that I'm developing, and hopefully make something beautiful for people.
Oh, I love that. Good luck with that, Jacob. I'm sure you'll
Yeah,
be fantastic at it.
and then I'll give you a tattoo at some point, right?
Way. Always room for
Yeah.
one more. My last one was a UFO on the back of my neck, so the bar is low.
What was the ancient symbolism there? The Egyptians?
Not even. Or maybe, actually, maybe exactly that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Depending
I've
on
seen.
which
I think I saw that
conspiracy.
UFO in the back of a Michelangelo painting or whatever, a Da Vinci one at some point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's where it comes from. It's very, very dates far back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about everything. Is there anything else you wanted to share about January, about reflection that you think anyone wants to hear or needs to hear before we end the podcast?
Can't think of anything really. Just a little note that there are still spaces available for anyone that wants to join the Trioum journey with me, which is a cyclical thing. You can jump in any month you like, where we explore the druidic wisdom of the trees. And it's a bit like Jumanji. You end up taking on board the life lessons each month. It's an online one, so anyone can join from around the world. But there's normally a link below if you want to join that.
Yep.
And apart from that, that's all from me, I think.
For the people listening, and I'm assuming we have some listeners in Glastonbury. How will
Yeah.
they get like sign up for what you're doing with the CIC?
Oh, yeah, thank you. That's really important. Yeah, so that is if you head to grovewellbeing.com, and that will bring up all of the different free Celtic workshops that we're doing. It is for the people of Glastonbury and, well, surrounding areas of Somerset. So if you're in that area, you just fill out a form to say that you can evidence your proof of address, blah, blah, blah. And then you just come along, and they're free workshops starting in the beginning of February.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Now, isn't it interesting that you and I are both moving into some more localized work?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's how spirit moves through us, I guess.
yeah. This darn spirit's telling us what to do.
I know. It is funny. Yeah. It makes life more of an adventure though, doesn't it? When you kind of
You
allow it
never
to
know.
just move you where it needs to move you. It's like, oh, where am
Oh,
I going?
everything comes back. It's a surrendering. If you try to force yourself, like, no, I want to go this way, but nope, just surrender to it. But take it where you're gonna go. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
gonna hit a rock on that river.
What's that thing? What's that saying? Something about like human beings make plans and the gods laugh at them for it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, be Bindi. Be Bindi. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Thank you for sitting through it, through our snottiness. And I hope you're surviving out there. We wish you all the best this winter. We'll see you next month for February when we have some early spring things to talk about. But thank you all so very
Take
much.
care, all.
Bye bye.
Bye.